Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and here we're doing a dedicated audio review on the VW ID.3. Now, if you'd like a more detailed review of the car itself, do check it out up on your pop-up banner or in the description below. Also down there, you'll find links to our social media platforms. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter, for example, we'd very much appreciate a follow so you can keep up with the latest news and reviews from TotallyEV. Now, to start off, let's talk about the audio configuration. And here we've got the ID.3 Life, which effectively has a 4+1 audio configuration. The +1 is effectively a center speaker, whereas the 4 speakers are positioned at the front only. Indeed, there is no rear speakers. For you to have rear speakers, you'll have to go for the ID Tech or the £36,000 equivalent or above in order to get the 6+1 audio configuration, and therefore essentially allows you to have, well, rear speakers. It's quite odd to see a £30,000 car not have any rear speakers, and suffice to say, this does impact rear occupants when it comes to listening to music. Now, regardless of that, the car has got perfect integration with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which can be connected over USB Type-C to Type-A or Type-C to Type-C if you've got the cable. And you've got also Bluetooth connectivity, where you've got both the AAC and SBC codecs to choose from, which is nice because the latter will be definitely favorable for iPhone users. Now, through the 10-inch infotainment display, you can customize and tailor the EQ through a 3-band equalizer. And here I've left the bass at 0. I've put the mids to around +1 or +2, and the treble at +1. You might want to leave the treble at 0 depending on the music volume that you listen to, and we'll touch upon why. But also, in my case, I just found it to add a little bit of extra zing at the top end. Of course, it's very much subjective. Now, to give you a little bit of a taster as to how the ID.3's audio system performs, I'm going to place the camera in 4 different locations and play back some music. The song I'll be using is from Priya J. The song is called Falling. If you're interested in listening it or purchasing it, it'll be down in the description below.
I'm not quite sussed it yet. When I reach the brink, don't stop to think. I always sing, and now I'm singing. Oh, I'm crawling. I am crawling my way back to falling from so high, falling from so high.
Now, with the audio demo out of the way, let's get on to my subjective opinion. And first off, let's talk about its bass response. Now here, in terms of its sub-bass frequencies, it's pretty much limited, purely because the car doesn't have a subwoofer that's integrated in the rear boot. It would be nice to see Volkswagen actually integrate this, or indeed offer it as an option. Alas, that's not the case. As a result, sub-bass extension is pretty cut off and doesn't lack that low-end oomph that you would get, let's say, on the Ioniq Electric by Hyundai. In comparison, though, the mid-bass is pretty tight. It's a little bit uncontrolled at certain times, specifically at the volume that you play it back. But on the whole, specifically at the front of the cabin, you'll get a nice sort of sense of warmness and, well, lots of emphasis on that mid-bass tones. Now, as a result, the mids are a little bit pushed back, a little bit recessed, and therefore gives an overall V-shaped sound signature. Nevertheless, the sound is very fun to listen to and accurate, although adding a few notches to the mid-range frequencies does bring out vocals to the foreground just a little bit more, and that's what I did through the EQ settings. Now, as for the highs, they're a little bit rolled off at the top end. However, if you do add a few notches to the EQ through the infotainment display, what you'll find is that it gives it that extra little bit of zing. The only thing worth bearing in mind here is that if you are going to be listening to music at a very loud volume, that top end clarity does end up become a little bit sibilant and become a little bit harsh, and as a result can be a little bit sensitive to certain people's ears. So it depends on terms of your hearing and the music you're listening to, and indeed the volume you're listening to. But in my case, adding 1 notch to the treble gave that little bit of extra clarity. Now, as for the Soundstage, this is arguably one of its biggest flaws, and let's of course talk about the rear of the cabin. Now, of course, the car that I've got isn't got the 6+1 configuration, and it is immediately apparent when you sit at the rear of the cabin because everything is coming from the front. of the cabin. You don't hear anything at the rear, and there's no even subwoofer to keep you kind of joyous. Now, of course, this might not concern some people who are only buying the car for themselves, or driving 1 or 2 occupants, or potentially not really minding too much that the kids can't listen to the music or the radio as much. But for those people who want to have a car where they're sharing it, or indeed they have a larger size family, the fact that it doesn't have any rear speakers, at least not in the £30,000 base model, is a little bit disappointing to say the least. And as a result, the Soundstage does take an effect, because it just doesn't sound as well. There's no sound coming out from the rear, so there's no sort of soundstage to really kind of benefit from. At the front of the cabin, given the fact that you're treated with 5 speakers, the center speaker and the 4 speakers, 2 which are placed in the, well, one is placed in each of the A-pillars and 1 within the front doors, allow you to get a little bit more sense of joy. Now, still, the soundstage is quite closed, and it's not as wide and as diverse as I might like. And again, that is due to the fact that it's got no rear speakers, or indeed more array of speakers, which would then give it better instrument separation and better width and depth. But all I'll say over here is that the imaging is done pretty well. Tonality is quite nice, and, well, suffice to say, for a stock system, it's okay. I was just expecting a little bit more from a £30,000 Volkswagen. So on the whole, what do I make of it? Well, truthfully, the audio system is perfectly good. It's really fun to listen to, as long as you're at the front of the cabin, at least in the base model ID.3. If you're going to go for the more expensive models, then of course you're going to be treated with rear speakers, and therefore the soundstage would be a little bit improved. Still, on the whole, it's a decent job. I just think Volkswagen could have done a little bit better in terms of the audio department over here. It's good, but just not as good enough, in my opinion, in comparison to, let's say, Volkswagen's cheaper alternatives, such as the Seat Me Electric or the VW E-Up, which are £20,000 alternatives, and also have a fantastic audio system, at least for the price, in terms of the stock audio system. But anyway, that's just my opinions and thoughts about it. I'd be very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you make of the ID.3 sound in terms of the audio system inside? I'd be intrigued to see what you think. Anyway, I've been Chris from TotallyEV. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to see more. Of course, favourite and share, as it always help the channel grow. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.